Ah, Disney sing-along songs. Before we had DVDs where we could skip to certain songs, before we could look up our favorite musical sequences on YouTube, we had these VHS tapes to get our fix of those sweet, sweet Disney tunes. It's debatable which one was the best, Under the Sea, no contest, but we all had our favorites. The first two volumes, Zippity-Doo-Dah and Hi-Ho, were hosted by Professor Owl, using footage from his theatrical shorts Melody and Toot, Whistle, Plunk, and Boom. Since these were his only animated appearances, they ran out of usable footage pretty fast, so most other volumes were introduced by Professor Owl, but then turned over to Jiminy Cricket or Ludwig von Drake, using footage from their own previous appearances, which there were more of. Since most of these volumes are just old footage of classic songs, there's not a lot to talk about. The most fun part was when they included obscure stuff. This was probably a lot of kids' first exposure to summer magic with the Ugly Bug Ball song, and it was certainly my first exposure to Song of the South, leaving me wondering for years who that arrogant rabbit was. But outside of a few nostalgic memories, there's nothing all that interesting to do a video about. At least not in the traditional volumes. No, the most fun sing-along tapes are the ones with all new, or at least mostly new material. The live-action ones that were filmed at the Disney theme parks. With the costume designs on the characters, the fashion senses of the human cast, and the attractions featured, these tapes are beautiful time capsules of the 90s, and over the next few episodes we are going to be looking at all of them. Yes, even the weird Dalmatian one. The first of these tapes they produced was Disneyland Fun from 1990, celebrating the park's 35th anniversary. Out of all the tapes, I'll admit that I'm probably going to spend the most time on this one. I, and many others, grew up with this one and think of it very fondly. It just reeks of the early 90s, and not just because of how the kids are dressed. One thing you'll notice right away is that there's a lot of Roger Rabbit in this tape. Aside from the then recently released Little Mermaid, Who Framed Roger Rabbit was Disney's biggest hit of the 80s, and for a while, Roger was essentially considered a new member of Mickey's elite squad. Alas, this didn't go on for too long, and today you can only see Roger at Disneyland in his cartoon spin attraction. It is a great ride, though. The video opens with Whistle While You Work from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs being sung by Mickey and friends as they work to spruce up the park before it opens. Hard-working cast members? What are those? Everyone knows Donald Duck is #1 when it comes to park upkeep. I actually thought this was legit how the park was cleaned every morning as a little kid by Minnie, Goofy, and the rest. I hope I'm not the only one who thought that. Once the ribbon is cut, the guests descend on the park like locusts, and Step in Time from Mary Poppins briefly plays to match the energy. The characters breathe a sigh of relief, but of course their work is far from done. The next song shows them back on their feet with a wardrobe change to do a dance number on Main Street. One cool thing about this tape is that most of the theme lands in the park are pretty well represented, or a concept at least is per song. The song, I'm Walkin' Right Down the Middle of Main Street, USA, was first written for the 25th anniversary show Disneyland Is Your Land. It was next used in the 30th anniversary TV special as part of a medley performed by Marie Osmond. And now here it is in yet another anniversary show. The catchy song has become appropriately synonymous with this location, and is still performed today at the parks as part of the daily trolley show. The next song, following the leader from Peter Pan, focuses on Adventureland, namely the Jungle Cruise attraction. Donald Duck leads a lucky group of recurring kids around, as onlookers can only gaze in envy. Following this, we're focusing on Tom Sawyer's Island, and this part used to freak me out. The homely-looking country bears, Terrence the Shaker, Wendell, and Liverlips namely, playfully chase the kids around on the rustic playground, but their somewhat deranged faces were pretty frightening to me. I once swore that if I ever set foot on that island that I'd stay out of the caves, lest I run into Liverlips. The bears sing The Great Outdoors from their vacation-themed hoedown, which ran in Disneyland until 2001, when Pooh Bear took up residence, and the kids cheerfully embrace them at the end. I would probably give them a big hug nowadays, but as a youngster, I'd probably be the one cowering in the corner off-screen. Next up is a salute to White Knuckle Rides. A fast-paced version of Zippity-Doo-Dah from Song of the South plays, as we see classic Disneyland thrills like Big Thunder Mountain, Splash Mountain, Star Tours, the submarine voyage, the monorail? Okay, the last two are kinda pushing it. The best moment is when we reach Splash Mountain, and the song switches to the infamous Zippity-Doo-Dah rap, as first heard in the 1988 Disney Christmas Parade telecast. It's cringy, it's hilarious, it's glorious. After that thrilling display, the next song is all about food. Glad they didn't do this one before Big Thunder, or things could have gotten gross. Our favorite befuddled bear, Winnie the Pooh, sings his classic song, Rumbly in My Tumbly, as he wanders the park, gazing longingly at others eating delicious meals while they try their best to ignore him. I'm sure Disney feeds Pooh just fine, but the bear just can't help but want more. Of course, he gets his honey in the end, because it would be truly an injustice if he had to wait more than 10 minutes between meals. My personal favorite land is next, Fantasyland, naturally accompanied by its own main theme, It's a Small World. Now, while some may cringe at this cheerful tune, its countless repetitions driving them to madness, I'm quite fond of the song and the message of peace and understanding it says. In my own humble opinion, people who endlessly hate on this ride can stand to get over themselves a little. Why is Fantasyland my favorite land, you might ask? The dark rides. Classics like Mr. Toad, Alice, and of course Peter Pan. However, outside of a brief hint of Snow White's scary adventures and It's a Small World itself, they really skimp on the dark ride footage here, opting instead to focus on the easier-to-film outdoor rides like Dumbo and the Teacups. Oh well. Following this is a salute to Shutterbugs. So, get your autograph book ready, your pens or pencils out, your cameras in position, and of course your PhotoPass card, because it's time to make some memories. The song Makin' Memories was first written by the Sherman Brothers as a pre-show theme for the 3D movie Magic Journeys. Since the show was sponsored by Kodak, a song about cameras made a lot of sense. This bouncy song had some fun moments, particularly the ones with Goofy, but as a kid I found it a little hard to concentrate on, because I knew the thing of my nightmares would follow. And yes, I mean even scarier than the Moonshine Happy Country Bears. Grim Grinning Ghosts opens with two kids staring at the stately haunted mansion. One of them ominously wonders what happens here after the park closes, leading to an extended fantasy sequence where the trees from Snow White, a ghostly Donald Duck, and a group of Disney villains prance around the mansion grounds. I'm not entirely sure why this song scared me, and apparently many others, but it just did. The zombie-looking costume they used for the Snow White hag probably contributed some, not to mention the close-ups on Maleficent's shiny green skin and prosthetic chin. It was the perfect amount of creepy for my young self, and after I watched it enough, it eventually became one of my favorite parts of the tape. For a while, though, I watched it from the other side of the room. You know, just for comfort. A little trivia on this section, the tree costumes were first used in 1987 for the park's celebration of Snow White's 50th anniversary. The ghostly Donald Duck costume was first used in the aforementioned Disneyland is Your Land show. The song is also performed by longtime voice actor Thurl Ravenscroft, who also did the lead vocals for the original 1969 version. He can be seen as one of the singing busts in the graveyard section near the end. After that brief scare, things liven up with a big parade. Using footage from the Christmas Parade and the then-current Party Gras Parade, the Character Parade song is a salute to Disney's entertainment venues, and made a nice palate cleanser from the Haunted Mansion song for me as a kid. The song itself has been around since the 70s, and is sung here with modified lyrics. The footage is great, and I just wish it would have been longer so we could see more of those impressive floats. Of course, all good things must end. And by all good things, I mean this wildly nostalgic half-hour VHS tape. While Pinocchio's When You Wish Upon a Star plays, the kids and characters gather in front of the castle for a heartfelt goodbye. As silly as it is getting emotional over this moment, it's gonna happen, just let it happen. It's like you're leaving the park with them. Once all the guests have left, Mickey, who hasn't actually done too much in this video, takes the center stage and shoots fireworks out of his fingers. Was this a move in Kingdom Hearts? This needs to be a move in Kingdom Hearts. And then he and Minnie lovingly walk through the castle to a fantasy world, a world of imagination, hopes, and dreams. I'm not crying, you're crying. So yeah, this was a commercial for Disneyland. But you know what? It was a great, truly effective commercial for Disneyland, made with a lot of heart staying firmly in the memories of countless viewers. If you can't get enough of Disneyland Fun, a video was released a year later called A Day at Disneyland, which featured some of the same attraction footage, along with new footage of various characters exploring the park. It's probably the only place you'll ever see Launchpad and Pluto hanging out, I'll tell you that much. And if you still can't get enough of Disneyland Fun, in 1993, an alternate version was filmed for its European counterpart. Let's Go to Disneyland Paris is at times a shot-for-shot remake, but obviously filmed at the French theme park. It's interesting to see a different take on the classic tape, and there are a few differences, so I think I'll be able to breeze through this one a little more quickly. The first big difference comes during following the leader. Instead of following Donald Duck onto Jungle Cruise, the kids follow Peter Pan through other elaborate Adventureland locales. Along the way, they run into characters like King Louie, Ariel, and the Genie, who they seem to be afraid of for some reason.
They also sneak on board Captain Hook's ship to harass him for no real reason. Well, Peter is their leader. Zippity-Doo-Dah lacks the rap sequence, which is probably for the best, and their Star Tours footage amusingly includes a copyright disclaimer at the bottom. Goofy also seems to take charge in this one, leading the kids on all the thrill rides. The Great Outdoors and Makin' Memories are absent, but we do get 2 songs to replace them. One of the coolest parts of Disneyland Paris is their hedge maze theme to Alice in Wonderland. A Wonderland medley shows some great footage of the maze as Alice, the Tweedles, the White Rabbit, and the Mad Hatter explore, dodging the Queen of Hearts along the way. There's also nice footage of a slide in the Queen's Castle, which has since been closed to the public. The rousing Pecos Bill song from Melody Time is performed in Frontierland, with Goofy as the cowboy. Chip and Dale, unfortunately, show up as a pair of stereotypical Native Americans, complete with them saying ugh and how, but thankfully this part is pretty brief. Otherwise, it's a pretty entertaining section. It's a Small World is largely the same, but it does feature some more dark ride footage, which is something I complained about in the first one, so it's nice to see my favorite attractions represented here. In Paris, the Haunted Mansion is called Phantom Manor, and is based around the tragic tale of a heartbroken bride and an evil spirit haunting her. In Nice Touch, the skeletal phantom is the one to bring the trees to life here. The Witch, Maleficent, Donald, and the Big Bad Wolf return, with the Phantom, Melanie the Bride, Jafar, and Iago joining in on things in this version. Captain Hook is the only absent one, but he already appeared in the following the leader song. There were some nice changes in this one, like Donald Duck accidentally being the one to scare all the spooks away, but it feels rather cluttered compared to the original. Guess I'm just a purist. Overall, like I said, Let's Go to Disneyland Paris is a nice video for those who just can't get enough of the original. Comparing the two is a lot of fun, and if you still can't get enough, there's a YouTube interview series called The Tiara Talk Show, hosted by TAMMY, which specializes in interviews with cast and crew members of virtually everything and anything Disney related. Tammy did an interview with some of the cast of Disneyland Fun on their memories of filming it, and I'll be sure to leave a link below if you want to give it a listen. It's a nice interview, and it's clear that everyone working on it had a good time.
The last tape we're looking at in this installment is going to be a Christmas one. In 1988, Disney released Very Merry Christmas Songs, which was, as the title stated, full of classic holiday tunes, with mostly reused footage from Disney shorts. Oddly enough, they also used 2 non-Disney public domain cartoons, Snow Foolin' by Famous Studios, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by Fleischer Studios. Aside from identifying which Disney cartoon was which, I didn't find this tape that interesting, but there is one high point. The song Here Comes Santa Claus, which showed great footage of the Disneyland Christmas Parade. In 1993, however, they released a second Christmas theme tape, The 12 Days of Christmas, which focused entirely on the costume characters, and as a result, was more interesting in that, cheesy, fun kind of way that we've come to expect. As the title implies, there are 12 songs on this tape, which opens with a montage of scenes to come set to the original song, Very Merry Christmas to You. After that, we join the main Disney gang at a rustic cabin, which is where the bulk of the first half of the tape appears to take place, before they essentially ditch it in the second half. The characters perform a country-inspired version of Deck the Halls. Even Uncle Scrooge is there, which is always a welcome appearance. Notably, Daisy is the only character who remains entirely silent, as she didn't have a consistent voice actress at this point. Tress MacNeille wouldn't start voicing her until 1999. The next song is Dear Santa, which was originally written, along with a few others featured on this tape, for a 1991 Christmas album, also called The 12 Days of Christmas. Huey, Dewey, and Louie write a letter to Santa asking for presents for their friends and family, but of course all the presents would be more beneficial to the nephews. Meanwhile, Goofy offers a map to help Santa find his house. Don't patronize the man, Goofy. Of course, you need a Christmas tree for this holiday, so Mickey and Goofy cut one down and join the group in a green screen sleigh ride back singing Jingle Bells. And pulling the sleigh is everyone's favorite pack mule, dog, Pluto, who deserves some extra treats after this one. I'm pretty impressed he manages to pull them all so quickly, too.
Pluto, you're ripped!
Snow Ho Ho follows, and it's probably one of my favorite moments because it really does feel genuine. The characters all play in the snow. Goofy skis, they build a snowman and christen him Old King Cool, and Donald and the nephews have a snowball fight. This is gutsy of Donald, as the last snowball fight he had with them did not end in his favor. Overall, there's just something really charming about how the characters are all just enjoying themselves together, barring the silly visual effects near the end. Oh, and the snowman comes to life at the last moment. We then head up north, way up north, to Santa's workshop where the elves have fallen into a rut. One of them pulls out an enormous cell phone and asks Santa if they can take a quick break. A dance break. Turning on their boombox, they start jamming out to Hip Hop Noel. If you haven't guessed by now, this song is almost as dangerously cheesy as the Splash Mountain rap. If the sheer 90s-ness of it all isn't enough for you, the elves are soon joined by the beloved Silly Reindeer, a group of characters who used to be a staple of Disney Christmas parades. These lovable doofs appeared from the 60s until about 2003, when they were replaced by more conventional, though nowhere near as memorable reindeer. The one part I didn't care for as a kid was when the giant toys in the background come to life and join the dance as well. The clown really creeped me out, since I was never a big fan of clowns, and this one in particular reminded me of Are You Afraid of the Dark's Crimson Clown, who was a huge source of childhood trauma for me. Equally creepy are Raggedy Ann and Andy. While I grew to love these characters after discovering their gloriously trippy 1977 movie and its ill-fated Broadway adaptation, seeing them as basically human-sized is still unsettling for me today. Back at the cabin, Huey is starting to have a crisis of faith. This Santa Claus guy they've been writing to and waiting for, is he real? His brothers sing He Delivers to convince him otherwise. Some of the elves from the previous song creep around outside, peering into windows, attempting to squelch this unbeliever. This works and Huey sees the light, shouting to the heavens gospel style that he believes. And while those crafty elves keep the ducks busy, who should drop off some presents but Santa himself? Pretty sneaky, Mr. Claus. Now it's time to carol, and the whole gang sings the 12 Days of Christmas in its entirety. This isn't a bad song, but it's a long one. I personally start to lose track after 7 swans of swimming. When I looked at the song's Wikipedia page for my small amount of research, I found an enormous table of all the different variations of the song's gifts and on which day they're given. No wonder I get so confused. I don't want to complain too much about this song, because if I do, I'll end up sounding like that Eddie Izzard routine about how the only part people really care about is 5 golden rings. Goofy sings, I'd like to have an elephant for Christmas next, realizing he forgot to ask Santa for what he wanted most. I'm not sure how that could have slipped his mind, as his entire room is decked out with elephant plushes, in what had to be the most fun set to decorate. I thought this was an original song, but it was apparently written by Hank Thompson back in 1964. Goofy admits it's not a practical gift, but maybe Santa can figure something out and even has a brief fantasy dance sequence. I do wonder where his elephant obsession came from. I know Mickey briefly had a baby elephant in one cartoon, and Goofy attempted to bathe an elephant named Dolores in another short. Maybe she left a big impression on him. After that, it's off to Walt Disney World for some great parade footage with the song Here Comes Santa. And not to be confused with Here Comes Santa Claus right down Santa Claus Lane, it's just Here Comes Santa, a completely different song. As I said before, I'm a sucker for old theme park footage, and it's really fun to try to identify all the characters. A few more obscure ones who can be spotted include Zummy Gummy, Brer Rabbit, and even Grandma Duck. Mickey and friends must have access to a private jet or something, because as night falls, we are no longer in Florida, but all the way over in California. The characters gather on Disneyland's Main Street around a huge Christmas tree as the classic "Oh Christmas Tree" is sung by a group of carolers. It's a warm, intimate moment that transitions into a joyous rendition of We Wish You a Merry Christmas as we wrap things up. While it doesn't quite measure up to Disneyland Fun, spoiler alert, none of them do, I'm very fond of the 12 Days of Christmas. I'm doing this review in the summer, and even watching it now gives me a comforting, Christmassy kind of feeling. Well, that's it for this video. Join me in the next one where I'll cover 3 more tapes, the Mickey's Fun Song series. And be sure to let me know what your favorite entry in the sing-along series was. And like, and comment, and subscribe. You know, the usual episode ending spiel.